All right. Well, hello everyone. It is Saturday afternoon. It's morning on the West Coast. I'm sure my friends are waking up after a nice night out, and now they get to see my smiling face as I talk to them. But let's get right into things. So, this week I want to hit on a number of things. And again, if you're trying to watch this on Instagram, don't watch it on YouTube or hey, Ro, how we doing? Let's watch it on YouTube or Facebook or LinkedIn. Basically, anything else that has better visuals going on versus me just standing here in my kid's nursery trying to talk while he pulls on my leg. So anyhow, what I want to hit this week, besides talking about the fact that we're only now 16 days away from Christmas, and me, like many of you, are watching all of the Hallmark Christmas movies that are coming out because they're all just so fantastic and wonderful. There's so many different Christmas miracles of a big city guy or a big city girl, just not knowing how things are done in a small town and finding true love in the small town when they get snowed in after an epic snowfall as they're forced to go there to bake some cookies. But, we're not going to talk about that. Instead, we're talking about real estate and money like we always do on a weekly basis. And the first thing I actually want to pull up, just so people kind of have as a visual as we're coming down the stretch here, and I actually can't see the visual, so I need to make this bigger, is just to show you what we're looking at from a total market perspective. So things are looking pretty green from the standpoint of how are the three major indices doing. Of course, if you like to really bet on things, then sorry, I need to move my camera. I just really can't see stuff. If you would like to bet on things, then Bitcoin is crushing it. And then you can see what's also kind of going on from the 30-year mortgage perspective, although that is coming back down. So again, it was sitting up at like 7.7 just like a month ago. So that is starting to soften a bit, which is a good thing as a real estate investor and anybody actually interested in the stock market. That is a positive indicator, but we're still not there yet. So now, before we get into kind of like the top 5 things, which I'd already kind of hit on, but I'll highlight them again, is here's a real poll question. I'll pop it up so that you guys can kind of answer it for yourself. But it's all about really what is your risk appetite? And from a risk appetite perspective, it's talking about the idea of loss aversion. And when we're talking about loss aversion, the big question I have is if you had $1 million and you could make $2 million in profit, or you could lose all $1 million, would you do it? So really, would you want to risk $1 million to essentially double that, or actually triple that to get $2 million in profit, or essentially lose $1 million and be down to zero? A lot of people that I've already asked this question have said they wouldn't want to, bet 1 million to win essentially $2 million in profit. That's not in their interest to go down to zero, but that's all each to our own, I would say. Now, so I want to get into the top 5 things. And again, I'm going to pop it up so you won't see my smiling face here again if you're watching it on the other handles outside of Instagram. But these are the top 5 stories that I want to get into. First is it cheaper to rent or buy? The second is it a surprise? Or what will this surprise be for people that are underpaying their taxes? And it's not a good surprise. So maybe it's a nightmare. Then I have 34 big ideas for 2024. I'm not going to talk about all 34 or else we'd be here forever. But I'm going to hit on 4 or 5 of them that I really enjoy, and I think that could be special for all of us. Then I'm going to talk about back in high school and in grade school, you always have those cliques and they'd leave people out. Well, now we're getting it from a grown-up standpoint, from an investment standpoint, and there is a big group getting left out of all the fun, and that is Wall Street. And it involves real estate investing. So I'll talk to you more about what the Wall Street is getting left out of. And then finally, I'm talking about a ticking time bomb on multifamily and what that all means for all of us. So let's get right into it. And the first one is going to be the cost of renting versus buying. So again, I have to move my screen so I can see where I am. But The Economist, if you don't read The Economist, well, tribute to my sister. She was the one that sent me this article, but The Economist is great. And I'm a big fan of it. But what they talked about is really, if you can see on this map here, that the growth of nominal house prices have climbed by about 40% just since 2020. And the average 30-year fixed home mortgage rate has gone from 3% up to about 7.3, let's just say 7.5%. That's lifting our typical mortgage payments by about 50%, essentially making buying a house and owning a house 50% more expensive just within the last 3 years. By contrast, rent, although landlords get a lot of shit for it, rent has only actually gone up about 20% in that same time frame. So 50% more expensive to own a home, 20% more expensive to rent a home. That is why there is this figure on the map that you see this drastic shift of nearly 89% of Americans wanting to rent versus buy. This same stat was 16% 3 years ago. That's a big delta, 73% delta to be exact. And the rough math to restore kind of the home ownership advantage and to achieve that American dream that a lot of people like to touch on is it would require a lot of dramatic shifts in the market. First, housing prices would really have to tumble by about a third, which definitely don't see that, especially on the coast here. Boston, I think in the 2008 correction, I think it might have gone down like 5%. Then the average mortgage rates would have to fall to about 3.2%. I don't project that actually coming back. I'm not an expert. I don't have a crystal ball, but I just don't project that really happening unless we had like another COVID like pandemic. And then rental costs would have to rise about 50% in order for us to really even be at parity of is it more expensive to rent than to buy. But all of those things you can play with your own calculations, read economists. These things can be found in my weekly blog and my newsletter. So up to you whether you want to get the email to your inbox, well then just get on my email list, or if you just want to get in the blog, then just follow on LinkedIn. You'll be able to get that newsletter too. So that is the first one. Now let's get into the cost of, or no longer cost of renting. We're now moving on to our dear friends in the IRS. And it's this surprise bill that's coming to those who underpay their taxes. I would say really attention to anybody that is a 1099 or a freelancer, or somebody that has multiple streams of income and needs to recognize their taxes on a quarterly basis, but it really waits till the end of the year. Because in the past, what occurred was that if you had underpaid your taxes, when your CPA does all the taxes for you, which again, if you have a lot of complex things going on, I strongly recommend a CPA versus just yourself using TurboTax. But what a CPA would generally do is, compile everything and you submit at the end of the year, either in April if you did an extension in October. And underpayments were generally hit with like a 3% charge if you weren't paying on like that quarterly basis, which is required. And if you're a W-2 employee, you're great because you already have all those taxes taken out of your paycheck. Well, the IRS as of October 1 has now changed it from 3% up to 8%. So delaying your payments to the IRS is no longer maybe a wise play if you can make more than 3%, because 8% is a lot harder to accomplish in the market. What that really equates to, in 2022, I think that was the number, about 12 million individual returns had underpaid, and that equated to close to $2 billion in penalties assessed by the IRS. I don't know about you. I don't really want to pay any more extra to the government. So really minimize the penalties that you're paying to the government by just being smart about recognizing your tax and income when it comes in. I included again in my blog a calculator from the IRS that shows how to figure out your withholding amounts so that you can avoid that 8% penalty. So you can check it out there if you want to. Now, the next one that I want to move into, and sorry, Crew is moving around in this room, but I have to find a way to talk to you guys while watching him do his own thing over there. So if I get distracted, it's just because the 1-year-old is doing his thing. Now, the third one I wanted to talk about was, what is your big idea? And for those that know me, I love a lot of ideas. And sometimes I get too excited that I go sprinting in one direction just to kind of turn back around like, that idea kind of sucked. But I get excited when I see other people sharing big ideas, because ideas are what really change the world. And LinkedIn had released a list of their 34 biggest ideas that could come true or change the landscape in 2024. And a few of the ones that I really like are, well, one, teachers finally getting paid. My family has a lot of school teachers in it, so I've got a lot of respect for the teachers out there that are just extremely underpaid and essentially babysitting a lot of kids and helping them in their, helping the future of America get better. So I personally would love to see teachers getting paid more or their fair share. Between teachers and therapists, the two most underappreciated fields that hopefully should get paid better in the future. Then how the real estate market is changing. We've seen, multifamily collapsing, a lot of areas of the real estate market collapsing. We've got the NAR, or National Association of Realtors, lawsuit, changing broker fees. So there's going to be a lot of changing dynamics in the real estate market, not to mention mortgage rates doubling. all of that fun stuff. So we can see a lot of things changing in 2024 from a real estate perspective. Another thing that I kind of liked, unretiring of the boomers. I'm a millennial. Then you got Gen X, and then you got the boomers, and we always see those memes of like, okay, boomer. Well, here's the fact. It's unfortunate, but there are a lot of boomers that will have to just re-enter the workforce. And it's through no fault of their own, but really just not being financially savvy. And having unfortunate market downturns, and they were all told to put money into a 401k, and life would be great. What's up, Matt? How are you? And the fact of the matter is, when the market goes down 25% like it did last year, a lot of boomers 401ks were kind of destroyed. So a lot of them are actually having to unretire and re-enter the workforce, and that's just kind of a sad fact. We can see what that might be, but if you enter a Walmart, it may not be a teenager there; it might be a 70-year-old. And how can you avoid that in the future? Well, definitely get connected with a financial advisor, talk through your situation, and make sure you're getting yourself into investments that have a little bit more protection than a 401k that has the tax hit and all the risk. Another interesting one that I kind of liked was people living to 100. We used to think that was such an incredible thing, but as modern medicine has achieved, and as Will Ferrell would always talk about in Talladega Nights, we are, maybe we can live to 120. I don't know. I just don't know. But it's a really cool thing to believe that we are slowly getting healthier. There's more things out there that will keep us alive. So long as it's a sustainable, enjoyable life, I think that's a great thing to celebrate. So that's kind of the big ideas that I at least wanted to highlight. But again, you can see all 34 of them. It's in a LinkedIn post, and it's referenced within my weekly newsletter. Now let's shift on to our dear friends in Wall Street. This is what I was talking about. You're in high school or college or even, grade school, junior high. Dear Lord, I'm losing things right now. And you always have those cliques trying to exclude people, saying, no, you're not cool enough. I don't want to deal with you, etc. Well, that's pretty much what politicians are telling Wall Street right now, because they are trying to actually cut Wall Street out of the housing market. Hopefully the image here, that looks like an angry bull, right? I think that was actually the live reaction of Wall Street when they heard that a new bill in Congress would require hedge funds to essentially exit the single family homes over a 10-year period, and eventually prohibit such companies from owning any single family homes at all. And this phase out would impose stiff tax penalties. Like, it's coming after Wall Street. It's going to even, like, within those penalties would then help down payment assistance for helping people actually acquire homes as individuals. Now, if it is actually signed into law, I think the bill is called like End Hedge Fund Control of America, American Homes. I don't know if it's actually going to pass, but it is planting the seed for more discussion like this. And just to kind of give a benchmark, it's not entirely new. It's back from June of 2022, but there's about 3% of homes nationwide that were owned by Wall Street. But in the cities that were really attractive, maybe like think of Charlotte, they actually had 20% ownership. So some cities feel the hurt more versus less from Wall Street ownership, and that is why bills in Congress like this are emerging. So stay tuned on it. It's just an interesting dynamic, and something we should all kind of monitor to see what happens next. Now, since I do multifamily investing, and hey, if you ever want to invest in real estate, you know who to talk to. But it's the same conversation that's been had for the last couple of years. And why is multifamily the next stress point in commercial real estate? Well, we've seen cap rates not double, but we've seen mortgage rates double. Cap rates have definitely expanded. All operating costs have increased significantly, like insurance costs, operating, you name it. Everything is skyrocketing. There's a surge in new supply coming online, so that reduces demand, which means people have to be more competitive at a lower rent part. So things like the Southern Belt or the Sun Belt, where everybody likes to invest because it's got such great opportunity. That opportunity is shrinking a little bit more because it's shrinking down your net operating income, and with cap rates coming up, well, that leads into a Molotov cocktail of reduced commercial real estate value in the multifamily space. And there's a lot of different perspectives out there. I have a backlink to some people providing their key opinion leader thoughts. I would just say you can still find great deals in multifamily real estate. The problem is you might just be investing with the wrong people. So find people that have some experience, that have been kind of through the gauntlet and know what they're doing. And I guarantee you, if you do that, you'll be in completely fine shape. But yeah, it's just going to be a little bit more intensive underwriting, maybe not as many deals coming through the pipeline, just because we need to figure out where things are in the market before doing anything else. All right, so that was our fun on the top 5 stories again. And we're going to move into capital structure bubble. You're right, Matt. So thank you for that. No, I appreciate the comment. So we're going to move into the 3 posts that I found most interesting on social media. I'm going to pop them up. Once again, if you guys are on Instagram, you will not be able to see this, but if you're on any of the other social platforms, then you're actually going to be able to see what the hell I'm talking about. But I'm still going to voice it over, so you're going to kind of know what I'm talking about. My man, Jerome Maldonado, awesome guy, really knows his stuff when it comes to real estate investing and building things from the ground up. I even was in his mentorship group for a bit. I do believe he brings a lot of value to the community and helping people create affordable housing. But one of the biggest things he was touching on was like what makes a individual successful, and it's talking about kind of the softer skills of sales, networking, communication, negotiation. Like anything you do in life, now I focus more so on real estate and business, but anything you do in life, whether you're a salesperson or not, you still need to be able to sell. You have to have a conversation with people, because ultimately, if you don't know what you're asking for, you're never going to go anywhere. And negotiating with people is ultimately going to help you get a stronger net operating income on any business operation that you're going to try and do. Whether it's just negotiating for a better salary, negotiating for the purchase of a house, negotiating for a business acquisition, you name it, negotiation is strong. And it's a lot of the times you can't get to that negotiation table unless you have a good network to connect you with those individuals or companies that will open up that opportunity to negotiate. So I just thought that was a really relevant post by Jerome. And I don't think he could have said it any better. You can watch his personal video about it, but I at least wanted to share that one. Then another guy I'm going to pop up here. Hopefully I switched that properly. Yep. So Spencer Strong, another guy involved in the real estate space. So guess what? Real estate people like talking to real estate people. And he laid out, again, you can kind of see what he wrote on the screen. I'm not going to, verbalize what he said, but I will hit on the 3 tips that he said to make it happen in 2024. Make an immediate plan, find a mentor, and take action. Why I want to talk about that is tips 1 and 3, I think, are kind of the same thing. You can make a plan, but a great plan on paper means absolutely nothing. You actually have to take action. You have to commit in order to achieve anything. And then tips in finding a mentor, take your time, talk to people, get referrals, take your time vetting people that you're going to rely on for good information and advice. A lot of people out there will have 2 to 3 good years. Everybody can have 2 to 3 good years. It's the people that can sustain through the good times and the bad times are the ones that you want to have as your mentor. And a lot of times it might just be experience versus years, because you can get a ton of experience doing a ton of different things that are most directly relevant to you as the individual or the mentor that you're seeking, versus somebody that's just been around for 40 years doing this one thing and you want him to mentor you on something entirely different. So vet out your mentors, make sure they've lined up with it specifically what you're trying to achieve, and you're going to be in good shape. All right, so that was our second social post. And then the third one was this guy by the name of Grant Cardone. I'm sure you guys haven't heard of him, right? So Grant had a post that definitely got some backlash, and I'd love to hear other people's opinion on it. He tells this college kid, don't go to college. And he's just like, why? 46% of kids don't graduate college in 6 years. 60% don't graduate college in 4 years. And the cost for college, quite frankly, is getting out of control. We see, the student loan issues. Sorry, my son is trying to put his sock down the diaper bin. But I lost my control. Thanks, buddy. No, stop doing that. See, this is the sock he was trying to dump down the diaper bin. Here, you can take it back. But where I'm hitting on with colleges, it is getting out of control. The student loan crisis is something that has come more to the forefront in the last couple of years because it was paused during COVID and it has been turned back on. But we really need to start figuring out as individuals, is college the right fit for us? College can do a lot of great things, and I personally learned a lot at college. I thought there was ways that it taught me some softer skills like networking, meeting people. It's just like we're so awkward in the world today, especially after COVID of just seeing each other through screens, that college can help us in a lot of ways that way. But some of the things I learned in the books weren't extremely relevant for me because there's a lot of great learning I got at Procter & Gamble, Berkshire Hathaway, at Nike, running my own business that college would never have been able to actually teach me. So to each their own. I wouldn't say get rid of college. I would say understand what you want to accomplish before you go to college, and that will give you a better idea if it's worth it for you. All right, so now we're kind of, we finished our top 5, we've covered our top 3 posts, and now we're going to move into a really fun thing called my weekly blog. And the weekly blog that I covered last week was asking yourself this one question. And if anybody has a family or is at least like probably 30 or bought a house or has any form of debt, they've probably talked to a financial advisor about the big question of, should I buy term and invest the difference? Yeah, we're going to talk about life insurance and investing. Super sexy topics. But the reason we got into this is because I got a lot of questions and text messages from friends a few weeks ago because I wrote a blog about this guy named Jim Harbaugh, who I don't really like. And Jim Harbaugh, is the Michigan coach, and me being an Ohio State Notre Dame fan, doesn't really always work out. But in Jim Harbaugh's latest extension, not the one that was just given to him this week, he actually got $2 million a year for 7 years put into an IUL policy called an Indexed Universal Life Insurance Policy. It's called insurance because there's a small term wrapper around it, but the large part is an investment vehicle that can only go up and never go down. Well, so good old Jim had this, and so a lot of other people have started doing this. It's known as the rich man's retirement vehicle. But a lot of people started asking me, is like, hey, how is this possible? This can't be right, yada, yada, yada. You can't guarantee a downside protection. And in fact, if you believe that you can enjoy downside protection, let me ask you this. Do you have any money at all in a bank? And if you do, then you are actually signing up to get downside protection because there's this cool thing called, let me pop up the image, the FDIC. And if you can see in this little image up here, again, sorry, Instagram people, you can't see this, but if you're on Facebook, Google, LinkedIn, everywhere else, essentially, you can see what I'm talking about. The FDIC says right here, each depositor insured gets at least $250,000. So that means you do have downside protection. It is guaranteed. A lot of us just don't think about it that way. So when people say it actually is guaranteed for a floor rate, they actually mean it. You just have to understand what they mean by that and don't just write it out as like, oh, that's absolutely impossible. But a lot of the times why financial advisors will tell you buy term and invest the difference is, one, they don't actually have that product or service they can offer. So they want to keep the money within their own bucket so they can make their own money. But the other reason is they also just don't understand that there's vast differences of what is life insurance. And so the first one let's talk about when we get into the buy term and invest the difference is, and it's really fun. If you actually want to Google it, you can. Buy term and invest the difference, and people will be like, oh my gosh, don't you dare buy permanent life insurance. But it's because they're comparing it to whole life. Now, I threw up an image here of Las Vegas. And why would I put up Las Vegas when I'm talking about insurance? Well, in Vegas, you take a lot of risk, right? And they always say that the house wins. Well, in this scenario, when we're talking about term insurance, the house is the insurance companies. And when you're buying term insurance, you're essentially just betting on you to outlive your policy. That's the hope. Insurance companies only pay out a term policy 3% of the time. So that means 97% of the time, people that paid for their term policy never got the benefits. So they're really just kind of spending money or just flushing it down the toilet. That's what I'm talking about of like term insurance. Is it cheaper? Yeah, like there's plenty of pros to this. It's a lot cheaper to buy term insurance. You can generally do it in chunks of like 10, 20, 30 years. And then if you are financially savvy and you do have the self-restraint to truthfully take the difference between what you bought with the term and what you would have gotten in a permanent policy and actually applied the remainder of that in the stock market, then some years you might actually be able to outperform what an IUL policy would do. You would definitely be able to outperform a whole life policy, but that's an entirely different story. And so that's kind of like one of the things of it being cost effective. It's flexible, getting those higher potential returns. But your cons to a term insurance is, where do I start? There's market risks. say you have a 30-year policy or a 20-year policy, and you are you get a pre-existing condition that occurs in year 15, you actually won't be able to renew after that 20th year. You're done. You can't get insurance. A lot of discipline is required with term if you're actually going to invest the difference. There's no tax benefits because your investment, if you're investing the difference, it's going to be taxed as capital gains. There's no way around that. And yeah, then getting affordable life insurance later on down the road, if you did want to try and leave a legacy for your kids and your grandkids, you won't be able to buy that. What insurance company would want to reinsure you at 65 or 70? Now, when would you want to actually consider term insurance? Well, if you do want to be more affordable, cheaper right now, and be able to invest that difference, sure, you can do that. But there is actually an alternative approach, and it is called permanent life insurance. And permanent life insurance falls in two buckets: whole life and index universal life. I'm going to first share some things about whole life. Thank you, crew. I appreciate it. Okay, you want to keep slamming? Give me 1 second. I might have to grab him. So you see the image up here. Oh, boy. Okay, and crew's going to join us for, I guess, the last bit here. But you can see the image up here of what a whole life policy looks like. And this exactly is why so many people sell against a insurance policy of buying term and investing the difference. Because you can see on the graph that whole life does not measure up with investing the difference, because whole life is actually managed from a returns perspective via the insurance company. So if the market actually goes up 20%, if the insurance company put that, they expect a 3 to 6% annualized, that means they can actually have that arbitrage. They get to manage how much money is coming out to you. I personally, and I will disclose this, I'll pop it up on the screen right now. I lost $52,000 just putting money into a whole life policy. And what I mean by that is I used to work for a very well-known insurance company back in college doing their internship. Drank the Kool-Aid. I was paying about $3,000 a year for a death benefit or a premium. And after 12 years, that means I had $36,000 in the account of premiums paid. But I was using it entirely as an investment vehicle. Oh yeah, you agree, crew. I was using it entirely as an investment vehicle. And during that 12 years, the market actually went up 212%. Well, when I surrendered my policy, that again, I had paid $36,000 in premiums towards, I had $38,000 in surrender value, meaning I made a whopping $2,000 off of my investment. That had I put it in, let's say, a different IUL policy, I would have made $52,000 at the same time frame. So that's why I really don't like whole life insurance policies. And why I would actually advise against it, even though I would advise for a different permanent policy versus term. And so why I'm sorry, Crew's just he's a fun guy, but he's distracting. Why I would actually advise something else, and hopefully you guys can kind of see this graph again. If you're not on Instagram, you can see it on the other platforms. But what I really like is IULs, and the benefits of IULs is, unlike the greedy insurance companies that even if it goes up 20%, they only have to give you 6%. What you actually get with an index universal life insurance policy is, say you want to have your investment pegged against the S&P 500, then you get all the growth on the upside, but because it's pegged against it, not in the market, you don't get any of the downside. So you got a floor rate of 0%, which means if the market goes up 20%, and then down 25% like it did last year, you get the 20% growth, but you don't get the 25% loss. You set your new base mark, so it only goes up, never goes down. That's why people freak out when they're just like, how can you guarantee that? Just like the FDIC, by having an insurance wrapper around it, you are actually able to guarantee the floor rate of 0%. It's something that I really love about IULs, and in this graph here that WFG shared with me, you can see, let's see what that growth is. Oh God, is that saying 852% growth? I can't really see the screen that well. But that as a comparison was from like 2000 up into 2020. So like a 20-year time frame showing the level of growth that one can get by putting in IUL and only having it go up and never going down versus having the volatility of the stock market. So that right there, I think is a good summary as to why I actually Would not agree when somebody says buy term and invest the difference. I would say don't buy whole life, but buy index universal life. So you're getting a term insurance type coverage, which is a small wrapper. Like let's imagine it's a piece of candy. You know, Christmas is around the corner. So you got a candy cane and you want that candy cane. But in order to access the candy cane, you first have to take off the wrapper. Well, just like in order to access your investment, you first have to take off the term insurance wrapper. That is why it's called an insurance and not an investment. So make that very clear. Neither one of these are investment vehicles. They just so happen to have good investment returns. They are all insurance. And it's something that you should definitely, if you don't have a financial advisor, talk to somebody about it. Hell, I can talk to you about it if you want. I have IULs on myself. I've had whole life for myself. I've had term for myself. I've had them all, and they've been a lot of fun. Thank you, buddy. Okay, I think Crew's saying goodbye to you. So with that, I think I'm also going to say goodbye to you as well. It's been a nice, fun 30 minutes, but I think we are good to go. And I appreciate everybody hopping on. You can always check this out on YouTube later, LinkedIn later. We'll get these videos uploaded. So take care, everyone. Have a good day. Bye-bye.